So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present here my first Sitecore User Group session, Brazil. I'm gonna talk about optimizing, how to optimize digital assets with Content Hub workflows. So with this session, really kind of just wanted to present some of my findings that I've been playing around with in the past couple of months. Recently, with everything around workflows and in particular state flows in Content Hub, if you're familiar with this concept, but I'll get into it in a little bit later. So just a quick slide about myself. I am Petar Mitev, founder and principal consultant of Mitev Consulting. I have 8 years, a bit more, longer than 8 years of Sitecore Content Hub experience. I'm a former Sitecore product marketer, product manager, pre-sales, and client services. Have done all these roles in the past, giving me kind of really just a really rounded, I would say, experience in Sitecore Content Hub. So with my move to Brazil last year, December, I decided to found my own consulting practice and just really leverage on my experience with Sitecore Content Hub and just trying to do something with what I was already doing for a long time, but then out of Brazil. So if you want to get in touch with me, here I've posted my LinkedIn and my email. But a little bit about the agenda for today. So what I wanted to start with is kind of like a very quick introduction of Sitecore Content Hub, an overview of asset workflows in Sitecore Content Hub, how agile asset workflows can benefit organizations and brand teams, and really just kind of deep diving into how we can optimize digital assets with agile workflows, specifically with state flows. And I'll give a little bit of time for some conclusions that I found during my research and exploring this topic recently. All right, quick intro to Sitecore Content Hub. So I think the main need for a Content Hub that, if we look at the typical marketer that sits in the middle of first of all trying to make sense of source raw content. This could be images that are coming from their creative teams, assets that are being worked on through campaigns from their agencies, but also product information coming from their product information management systems, their master data management systems, or any other upstream systems coming from their enterprise landscape. So all this content that needs to make sense, it's coming in raw form. And on the right side of the marketer's, I would say, dilemma is that they need to distribute enriched content. This needs to be meaningful content that needs to be provided into channels. So I'm just gonna hide my Teams window here. So this may be on the website and their CMS, on social media, in their e-commerce presence, when they're selling their products or services, or on other devices, or even their intranet. And all of this content then needs to come back with, what has been used and what has been kind of successful content in getting analytics back for the marketer. So this, all of this is, how do we manage this kind of process? We need to get that content aggregated, make sense of it, and then distribute it. So this is where Content Hub comes in place, with a marketing content repository that sits in the middle. Content Hub, this is our digital asset management repository, Content Hub DAM, a marketing portal for creative automation, work management and creative collaboration with Content Hub operations. And so all of that, it allows marketers to create, manage, collaborate, making sense, enriching content, allowing it to be searched for and used by their stakeholders that need to use their assets and content, as well as distributing it into the different channels. So through also, as well as including a headless delivery layer. So and in the world of digital asset management, we also talk about assets value. So the business value of an asset is not just the image itself or the media, the rich media asset. it's also more than just its metadata. It's so through Sitecore Content Hub, you can give it more contextual meaning, such as in this example, we see next to all the images, we also have products that might be coming from a source system from a PIM. Then also related content next to it that might be published onto social media or other channels, as well as recipes that might be enriched and further created and managed into Content Hub, but then distributed on the website with recipes. So all of this gives more value to an asset, because asset on its own is not sufficient. It needs to get more context. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time on the key capabilities of Sitecore Content Hub, which is the main fundamental layer of Sitecore Content Hub is Content Hub DAM. This is the digital asset management layer of Content Hub, where you can manage assets, simplifying storage, distribution, management, and control of digital assets, but also managing entities through a so-called client-driven domain model. So you can really integrate and aggregate your products and services, or any data or entities, as we call it as well, to enrich with marketing content. So that creates a holistic single source of truth for all of your content in your marketing organization. Next to this fundamental layer, Content Hub DAM, we have the headless content delivery, also called Experience Edge, which allows you to publish content headlessly to any channel or downstream apps. And the creative automation layer, which is the so-called Content Publisher. It's powered by Chili Publish, and it allows to automate repetitive tasks in content production through smart templates, pre-created templates by your designer folks that can then be leveraged by non-designer users in the system to scale that creative production. And the next layer is Content Hub Operations, where you can manage content, streamlining content strategy, planning, creation, and publication, but also manage operations. So the planning side, the management side, and automation side of executing a marketing project or a campaign. So all of this we call Content Hub, and from a capabilities point of view, you have Content Hub DAM and Content Hub Operations, but when you actually purchase the licensed Content Hub DAM, you are entitled to do digital asset management, expand your domain model, as well as publish content headlessly, and creative automation is an add-on. And through the Content Hub Operations license, you get the DAM fundamental layer, as well as the content marketing platform, marketing resource management platform, so where you can manage content and manage your operations as well. Now, a Content Hub really enables the marketing ecosystem. So you might have marketing operations, your digital marketing, your content creators, your web editors. All of these stakeholders in your marketing ecosystem can benefit from a Content Hub from different points of views, from where they manage their operations and projects and budgets across teams, or having one platform for efficient access into the Content Hub repository, all of your content in one place, and distributing it at scale across all channels. So, all of these are enabled through this single Content Hub. And this process of getting a single Content Hub might be a very overwhelming task for teams, and some organizations have a long process of getting control of their content lifecycle, but it really compounds the effects. So the effects of doing this compound over time. So a few of those strategic benefits are really like the ability to optimize your content, maximizing the strategic value of it through consistency across channels, getting to market faster, reach your campaigns, so producing and launching content quicker with this more agile and efficient process, having a unified platform for the creation and distribution of content, and a more streamlined process, which is allowing to strategize and plan and collaborate all the approvals and publishing into one in a one holistic system. So I've given a quick intro to Content Hub. I wanted to dive into the actual topic that I wanted to talk to you about today is, what are asset workflows and what are asset workflows specifically in the context of Sitecore Content Hub? So I like to think of it as the backbone of digital asset management. An asset workflow is all about, is the whole reason why you need a DAM. It's the process behind organizing, storing, retrieving, and managing your digital assets for an organization. And this process might be very different across one organization to the other, but it essentially follows a process where you create your assets, you manage them, enrich them, give them context, curate them in the DAM. You collaborate on them, approve them so that they're available for the broader community and stakeholders that need to use the DAM, and then publishing, distributing them for getting value out of them. An asset on its own lying in a repository doesn't have a value, so they need to be used, they need to be distributed. And then finally, retrieving, so allowing those assets to be retrieved and repurposed for different, they might need to be adopted for different campaigns or for the different markets that you might be active in. And then usually the final process of this workflow is that they expire and get archived after some time. So what this does is really it streamlines the digital asset management from creation to distribution all the way to archival of assets. It helps to guide DAM activities for a more efficient organization, facilitates collaboration for faster approvals, more increased security so that you don't end up violating digital rights, and it also improves brand consistency. So I wanted to now spend a bit of time in just kind of giving an overview of the different varieties of workflows that can be done in Sitecore Content Hub. In Content Hub DAM, we have the DAM two-step approval, as we sometimes call it. It's really just uploading, submitting for approval, and approving or rejecting the asset. It's out of the box in the DAM. It's a fixed workflow. It's not configurable, but it has a low effort, simple and easy to use with a good adoption. So and also it doesn't require the Content Hub operations license because it's just part of the fundamental DAM module. Now, asset level state flows, what I mean by that, it's built with the state flows engine in Content Hub. They're configurable and adaptable to specific processes which teams might have, different brand organizations. They allow for automation to streamline operations, and state flows have the flexibility to be either cyclical or linear in process. You can create a linear process or a cyclical where it might go different rounds of approvals between different teams. And it has a medium effort and kind of has a good balance between ease of use and flexibility. Again, it doesn't require the Content Hub operations license. Now, if we move into the Content Hub operations side of the picture, where we have different ways of managing our asset workflows, first one to come in mind is the jobs, because it's really meant for agile and quick work. Again, built on the state flows engine, allows for automation to streamline operations. But the difference is that actions are linked to each state defined asset workflows. So you drive the job workflow to basically define what actions need to be done on the assets. It's limited to the job actions, the available job actions, which are, I think, about 8 or 9 actions out of the box. State flows can be cyclical, linear, and low to medium effort. And again, the main difference here is that the workflow on the job level defines the whole, so all of the actions available on all of the assets in the job. So if you're working with 5 different assets inside of a job, all of those 5 assets have the same action that is assigned to it through the state flow. And that's the difference with the asset level state flow, where you define for each and single asset, it has its own workflow and its own action that you can do with it. From my point of view and experience, low to medium effort to implement. But then you do need the Content Hub operations license. Basic projects, classical task-based project approach. So you chain, you manage, you assign tasks. It includes resource and budget management. It's limited to the task's actions. So the available actions in the out-of-the-box tasks, the task types that you can create, are limited to those actions. So you don't have any flexibility there. Tasks are linear. They follow a chained sequence. You can make a dependency between one task to the other, but it's always linear. So you cannot have a cyclical approval workflow. It has a low to medium effort to implement, relatively easy to use and adopt. Most clients use basic projects, the ones that do have this, the ones that do use content operations. And next up is multi-stage projects. Follows a waterfall campaign approach. You can manage a timeline, can create sub-projects within a campaign, have stages and milestones. So it's a much more robust and advanced project management tool. Again, it includes resource and budget management, but it's much more for complex campaign management, for more, I would say, more mature and complex organizations. It has a very, for me, my point of view, medium to high effort to implement and a complex user adoption, because you can really have multiple layers to this approach. And I think worth to point out here is that there's a sixth approach where you can do sort of agile hybrid projects. So and this approach can be applied to both basic projects, but also multi-stage projects. So you're basically leveraging the Stateflow's workflow engine to build the workflow. And then that can be applied in tandem on the project level as well as the asset or content level. So you can have a Stateflow driving the workflow of the project itself, as well as the individual workflows of each asset within a project. It's very flexible and adaptable to hybrid approaches. I think a high level of effort to implement. And so this was a quick overview of the different varieties of workflows. So for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to focus on asset level state flows because I think it's a very interesting way of doing asset workflows, relatively easy to do, easy to use. And just because of time management, I'm not going to be able to cover all of the different types of workflows in Content Hub, so I'm going to just focus on this one for the rest of the presentation. So quick word on benefits of this more agile approach. I think it's a kind of a shift, a paradigm shift from the more traditional linear workflows to a more flexible automated process. So it's based on a more modern Content Hub feature. Nowadays, it's not so modern, I would say. Some people might challenge me on this, but Stateflow's engine was released a couple of years back and later than the out-of-the-box workflows that were available in Content Hub. So that's why I consider it a more modern approach. It offers more flexibility. It allows for automation of your operations. It allows for organizations to also adapt more quickly to evolving customer needs. So if your workflows become more complex, you can more easily adapt to these more complex workflows. And by saying complex workflows, it also allows for more advanced workflows. So you can have a multi-phased approach in that is working in tandem with multiple state flows and workflows. All right, so how do we do it? I think the main thing to start with is first start with the process. What is the process that you want to achieve with? And what I'm going to do here is in this kind of flowchart is basically present so here we have the lifecycle status of an asset on top, moving from created to under review to rejected to approved and archived. This is a typical lifecycle status. It can also vary. You can have a different lifecycle status, but I'm starting from the baseline here. And also the different roles that are typically involved in the DAM workflow. Usually it's an asset creator or a designer. There's a brand approval, typically, needs to check for brand compliancy. And there's also usually a content administrator that checks, for if the assets have been tagged correctly. They often do some metadata audits, making sure that things are categorized accordingly in the repository. So what is usually the typical first step? It's to upload the assets in the DAM. Once the assets are uploaded, we might want to allow AI tagging and metadata enrichment to happen. And then afterwards, the asset creator submits them for review. So assets are then in review for the brand approver to have a look at them. Then they might send, the asset to send it back to the asset creator for annotation, and send it for rework. So then the asset is now rejected, and then the asset creator might send it back. Okay, I've uploaded a new version and I'm sending it for review, so that the brand approver can now check it again. And this process can happen multiple times until it's finally finished. So once the brand approver approves the assets, they get approved and published through the DAM. And then at that point, we can have, let's say a year later, the content administrator, DAM librarian might want to archive these assets manually, or let them expire automatically through some programmatic functions. And then at some point, okay, maybe this expired asset might come back to life, and we can restore it back into the DAM repository. So this process here of what I've done is I've applied it in my Content Hub environment to just demonstrate to you how you can achieve it with state flows. So moving away from the out-of-the-box DAM workflow. So first thing we're going to do is enable state flow on the m.asset definition. Pretty straightforward process. We tick some boxes, check some options, especially enabling assignees. You want to be able to assign people through a state flow, assign to a user group, assign to a user. We need to enable the detail page, asset details, or you can choose a very specific detail page. I think this is an interesting approach that you can try. Have a dedicated asset details page that is more focused on the workflow for work in progress assets that are not yet approved and available in the DAM repository. But I think it's a more of a special approach, not to focus too much on it. And we want to make sure that the final lifecycle status field is enabled. Now, this is the out-of-the-box status taxonomy for an asset. Not recommended to change this one, but you can certainly experiment. It will lead to some unexpected behaviors if you do. So we can enable other fields, which can be interesting. If we have fields like booleans or other taxonomies that we want to, perhaps we have another status field that is coming from our another system that we need to synchronize through an integration. So we might want to be able to drive that status field as well in a separate field, so we don't touch the lifecycle status field. So in tandem, we can do that kind of workflow as well. Next step, we'll create a new state flow. So basically going to the state flows for in our content environment, we're going to create a new state flow for the m.asset definition. We give it a name, define, if needed, specific for the state flow, a detail page. I talked a little bit about it. Here, this will be specific to that state flow. So that's also possible. You can have dedicated detail pages for each state flow. And defining an email template optional can be very interesting as well. I'm going to have some, I'll talk a little bit about it later in my conclusions of this presentation. And then we're going to create all the defined states with each assignee status fields and define the transitions between states. Now, if I have to go through all the different steps to create this workflow, it will take me quite a while. So I've just created this, and we'll go in a demo in a bit where I demonstrate this workflow. And if we need more details, I can show a little bit around. Now, we're not finished yet because we've created a state flow, but a state flow on its own, it doesn't get triggered automatically. So we might want to consider to create an action and a trigger that kicks off the state flow based on certain conditions. And here it can get really interesting because you can have a different state flow for a different asset type. Based on the asset type, a different stateful can be triggered, defining a very specific workflow for, let's say, if my asset type is some kind of a legal document, it might need to go through legal verification by our legal department. So we start by creating an action that starts the damn asset workflow stateful that I just created. Then we create a new trigger with the m.asset definition condition, and then we can build further conditions that I just kind of explain a little bit. Further conditional logic can be implemented to drive that specific workflow kickoff. So in the next step, we're gonna go in the portal pages configuration. We're gonna go to the asset detail page configuration, and we need to add the state machine viewer on the asset detail page. In my example, I've added the workflow tab, which shows which state is currently this asset in. It's currently in created state. So please check and validate that all metadata fields have been added and submit for review. It also shows who's assigned to the state. So next we need to add the stateflow transitions on the entity operations here. So this is what we see here. In the entity operations component, we add the stateflow transitions. And so we need to also add the stateflow transitions operations on the search and selection component in the create and review pages, because essentially I don't want to be going through every single asset in the detail page to drive the state of the workflow by clicking this button here. I want to be able to do that maybe quickly, or even in mass edit in bulk, select 10 assets and then approve or send for review. So that's what we do by doing this step here. All right, time for the demo. Before I do, is there any questions that I can answer now, or should I pause, park those questions in the end?
Let's keep it to the end.
All right. So go to my sandbox here. In the create space is where we can upload assets. And as you can see, I already have some assets here that are pending to do something on them. What I'll do is I'll just upload a few new ones. All right, so I'll go to some demo assets here. Let's upload these files here. And then as soon as these assets get uploaded, we'll also see that the state flow will get automatically triggered. In the beginning, we don't have the operation to see that workflow action, but in a second it will appear. So there you go. So yeah, this fruitful product line and so on, these images we can send them for review, but let's try to do that before doing anything. Okay, action failed, asset type is required, because actually I have a field which is mandatory. So stateflows work with conditional mandatory fields. In my case, I've defined that the asset type is mandatory before I can before I can submit them for approval. So I need to define that this asset type is a product, save, and then I can finally send this asset for review. So I'll hit the send for review, and let me go back to my assets create page, and I can do the same with all these assets one by one, or I could drag, select, and then edit them in table view, which is a much easier way to mass edit. And then here, let's add, this is the news, this is news, and this is a product. All right, so we save and close. And then as soon as my mass edits have been processed, I'll be able to also indeed drag and select and perform a mass submit through my stateflow action. So actually this one here, send for review. In fact, I couldn't do it for these 4 assets because those were rejected. So that's a slightly different state transition. So we'll just take my new asset that I just uploaded a second ago. So then I'll send them for review. And in a few moments, they will be processed and they will be sent in the review space. So the asset creator, if I remember my process slide here, in here we had the asset creator that needs to upload, tag, and then the brand approver goes into the review space and approves the asset. So this is what I'm doing here. There you go. We got all the assets here available for us to review. And so I can either approve and publish, or I can go in the details of the assets. Maybe I want to annotate. So I'll annotate this SVG logo. Actually, that wasn't a very good example to annotate. I will take this JPEG here. Okay, so and I'll add some comments. Please make this more orangey. And I'll go back to the asset details. I've added my annotations, and I might want to send it back, reject it, and send it for rework. So, and with each step of this workflow, the respective assignees of this workflow also get emails. They also get notification. So all this time I've been receiving all these notifications because essentially it's the same person doing it, myself. But this email notification as well as a browser notification can be activated to notify people that they need to do an action through this workflow. So now that the asset creator has received this back, they need to check down notification. They need to check down annotations on the asset and then upload a new file version. So I might want to upload a new version. I'll just take this asset. I'm not even sure it's this. Yeah, it's a different one. That's the one. It's exactly the same version, but just for the example, in Content Hub, we track versions of each file version on the asset. So now that we've uploaded a new file version, this will become the new master asset. And once the thumbnail is processed, we'll also see the changes on the screen. And then the asset creator can then send this asset again for review, at which point the asset reviewer will go in the review space and we will see, okay, this JPEG image is now changed. They can check the annotations. Let's see what has happened here. Did our comments get resolved? So I'll compare my master file with version 1. And so here's my previous original comment. Make this more orangey, and we see that in the new file version, this has been resolved. So now I can go back to the asset and approve it. As soon as I hit approve and publish, the asset is now finally available in the assets repository, where it's available for everyone to search, find, download, use, or publish in downstream channels for marketing campaigns. This is the image. We can do the rest. So we can also do the rest with the rest of the assets, or we can bulk approve them. I think that's my action here. I think that's another. And so I haven't, in fact, I haven't actually activated the transition in this component, but essentially it will work the same way as the transition in the create space that I had activated. In my case, I'll just manually hit the approve button and all of the assets will be approved and available in the asset space in the repository. So we talked about archival and an asset going out of life. So this is the action that a content administrator can manually do to archive this asset if this is no longer needed or if it has expired or for some reason this asset needs to be taken out from its life cycle. So we'll click here, little confirmation message asks us if we're sure to archive it. And this is the end of the workflow of this asset. We can also restore it, but I'll leave it like this. So we see that it's also, archive asset is expired and archived from the DAM. And there's no one right now assigned to this state flow since there's no need to do anything right now. So this was a quick demo. I wanted to have a quick word on some conclusions that I have kind of come to by doing this approach, because it's not 100% exactly one-on-one the same as leveraging the out-of-the-box DAM workflow. So first note, maybe an obvious one, but make sure your mass edit tool, the mass edit feature, whether you're using the mass edit in a form view or in a table view, it represents all the necessary metadata fields for quick editing and the submission of assets. So it allows you to quickly edit and submit the changes. Leverage conditional mandatory fields based on the lifecycle status. So in my case, my asset type was mandatory when the lifecycle status is under review or approved, and content repository standard. So this was my condition for the mandatory field. And the stateflow transitions will check for this mandatory condition. So if you have this kind of logic, it's very interesting to know that this is handled. Previously, I think some time ago, this was not yet supported, and so it's quite cool that product has now fixed it and is supported. Leverage fields for approvers or brands that would drive dynamic user group assignment. So in a more complex workflow process, you might have different approvers or different brands that need to be dynamically assigned in a workflow. So you can have those kind of fields that drive this dynamic user group assignment. I'm not going to go into the details today, but this is really interesting for more complex approval workflows. So you would essentially activate approver user field on the asset level, and then you fill in who's the approver for this asset or some kind of taxonomy logic, and then you let that drive your dynamic user group assignment on the state flow. Leverage the creator dynamic. So the creator is a dynamic assignee option in the state flow, which is useful for sending back assets to the asset creator. Dynamic user groups can also be extended with custom scripting logic for more complex cross-brand, cross-market, and department approvals. This can be even more complex. We have worked on a project before with a client that did this kind of more custom logic, and in their case it worked well, but it's fairly complex because you have a very difficult logic to implement. And leverage custom email templates. So you'll notice that the CMP workflow so the content items CMP workflow is leveraging a specific email template. So it's really interesting to customize and create an email template for your asset workflows, so if you're leveraging state flows, and customize that message. So I think that's quite interesting for the person that is getting the email. The message should be meaningful for them to know, what's going on? What do I need to do? What kind of a workflow are we, what step and so on are we dealing with right now? And some limitations that I found in this approach is that you cannot leverage user group policies for conditional permissions. So in if you're familiar with conditional permissions and permissions in general in the user group policies of Content Hub, you have the approve and the publish and a few other, I think there's the submit action permission within the user group policy condition. So you can then drive kind of conditional logic who, based on what asset type or based on which taxonomy, market, or brand, which user can approve or submit. So this is not possible with state flows. Assignments are fully driven by the stateful assignment field, either user or user group. You can achieve quite a lot with this, but yeah, you cannot have these kind of conditional permissions through the user group policies. So you either have it assigned or not, and so that's kind of the logic there. And someone that is not assigned to a state flow, to a state, doesn't have the action to transition the state. So that's the whole thing there. And you cannot have a field for the rejection reason. So in the out-of-the-box DAM workflow, we can click on reject on an asset. I think I need to send this one back to show an example here. So if I use the state flow action here to reject, I'm not going to have a field to fill in the reason. I'm just going to have a confirmation model window, okay, confirm or cancel. In the out-of-the-box reject field, we have a reason for this is not a good asset. And then this reason will be also available in the asset details. So I think, yeah, and then we can see also the reason for rejection is quite well visible on the detail page of the asset. That's it from my kind of conclusions and some tips and tricks.
All right, thanks, Peter, for the great presentation. It was awesome. Let me turn on my camera here. And if you don't know me, I'm José. I'm a co-organizer of SUG-BR, and I'd like to say that presentation was great, really great. And we do have two questions for you. And first question would be related to licensing. So the question is, do you always need to buy the Content Hub operation license along with the DAM license, or can you have just one? Do you need, I mean, can you buy just the DAM license, or do you need to buy the package?
Yeah, indeed, Content of DAM is available standalone. This one of my slides was kind of trying to explain these capabilities. So with Content of DAM, let me pull up this slide if you want real quick. My presentation. Here you go. So Content Hub DAM comes with the digital asset management module, as well as the client-driven domain model. So here in this licensing model, you get the managing assets, managing entities, headless content delivery with Experience Edge, and you can also add on the content publisher for creative automation, but this is an add-on license. So essentially you will have this piece here of the pie. If you purchase Content Hub operations, essentially you get all of this of the pie. So including them, including digital asset management, including the client-driven domain model, including the content marketing platform, marketing resource management, as well as headless content delivery. And you can add on the content publisher on both the Content Hub DAM and Content Hub operations licensing model. I hope this makes sense now.
Yeah, does make sense. And, thank you. And another question, it is how easy is for a user to create a workflow or to customize the existing workflow?
Yeah. So if we're talking about the state flow, which I've been presenting today, how easy it is in terms of level of effort, I think
Yeah,
it's
I can. Yeah, let's say like I mean, add new states, or I mean, can be done
yeah,
easily with the tool. The tool supports this in a user-friendly way.
yeah. I think it's a really user-friendly way of building workflow. So it's purely drag and drop. You don't have to do any coding, but it's mostly, I think 80% of work is sitting down with your client and understanding the process today and how they want to achieve it tomorrow in a more streamlined operation, and kind of when if they want to streamline their operations, you need to do these things instead of sending back and forth emails and files through Dropbox. You want to be doing this in Content Hub, all in one platform where it's all managed in the same consistent way. So 80% of that is understanding what your client needs and then translating this process need. I think drawing it on a diagram like this that I did here can really help. So this process, and then you try to apply it with state flows. So you essentially create this state. Okay, what's the state? So my first state was asset is uploaded. So I'm going to create this state asset uploaded, and then you define what happens during the state. So do I need to uh, assign someone? Is someone needed here? Do you need to have a certain action done by someone? If it's just for an asset to be in an archive state, no one needs to do anything. So no one needs to be assigned, So then you keep it either clean or just keep the existing assignee from the previous state. And then what is the lifecycle status that needs to be changed here? So in the case of asset is uploaded, this is lifecycle status created. I don't think you even need to do this. You can actually keep it because out of the box, when you upload an asset, it's already in the final lifecycle status created. And then you
All
continue
right.
this way. So yeah, I think it's pretty easy.
All right. We have just 3 minutes. There is one question. Does Content Hub support 360-degree image?
360 degrees
Image.
images. 3D assets are supported, but I think
I'm,
360 degrees are
I
very
think,
special. Mhm.
yeah, no, yeah, that's what I saw on the chat box. But if you can elaborate for us, Balaji, a little bit more for question.
Yeah, what's the
Okay,
file type
so
actually?
yeah, so like more like a car picture on a showroom. So I think he wants, let's say you have like he said, like a showroom, a car, and want to put like a left image, front image, top image, so you can connect those images all at once somehow. But
Bala, I have added you permission to use your microphone. If you prefer, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
What I was trying to ask is like when you go on a regular websites, you get a 360 image of a product or something where you can rotate and play around. Typically, it's all like 15 or 20 images stitched together, and then you have a client library which could give you that facility of rotating it. So I was just wondering if you have, if that is possible or feasible with Content Hub.
It depends on JavaScript, right?
It depends how you integrate it exactly. So JavaScript.
Yeah.
So essentially, what you want to do is basically store some kind of metadata information about this asset.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the 360 degree is it supposed to be? Is it position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So where that position comes is defined probably by the graphic designer or the creator of those images. So the designer, right? And then when they upload these assets, they need to make sure that this metadata or taxonomy, where it really depends how your downstream system is going to consume it, is essentially how you're going to configure it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was thinking the same because Content Hub doesn't care if it is it's just an image. So you can upload like 20 images or something. Like you said, the downstream system might need to translate it and understand and stitch it together or something like that.
Yeah, and you might want to create some kind of a self relation to bundle them